The Victorians built the modern idea of the home as a private haven, a space shut away from the messy chaos of factories and mills. This desire to escape the outside world gave us the phrase "safe as houses," showing how much people trusted their own four walls. That trust was boosted by the 1851 Great Exhibition, a massive event that showed off the wonders of factory-made goods and triggered a huge wave of shopping. For the first time, a growing middle class had the money to fill their rooms with mass-produced furniture, newfangled gadgets, and bright decorations that showed they had made it. Yet, this hid a dark truth. The very items meant to make the home perfect were actually made using quick, untested, and completely unregulated methods. A close look at the Victorian home reveals it was not a safe harbor, but a death trap. The search for beauty, physical perfection, and modern ease, done without any safety laws or understanding of materials, built deadly design mistakes right into everyday life. The home became a box of hidden dangers, turning the dream of a happy family life into a quiet, slow-running disaster. By the 1850s, middle-class Victorians had completely turned their backs on the plain, simple styles of the previous century. Helped by the arrival of indoor gas lighting, which finally made bright colors stand out inside, families wanted bold, heavily patterned wallpapers to show off their wealth. The star of this design craze was a bright, long-lasting green paint called Scheele's green. Created by a Swedish chemist, this popular shade got its color from a deadly chemical, copper arsenite, which is pure arsenic. Records show that a single Victorian sitting room could have up to 2.5 kilos of arsenic hanging on the walls. The danger, though, was not just the paint itself, but how it behaved in the room. The poison attacked in two silent ways. First, the heavy paper constantly shed tiny flakes of toxic dust into closed, stuffy rooms. Second, and even worse, damp walls in Victorian houses reacted with the starch in the wallpaper glue. This dampness grew mold, which fed on the arsenic and breathed it out into the air as a highly poisonous gas. Doctors and health officials did not spot the danger at first because the sickness looked exactly like a well-known killer. The signs of slow arsenic poisoning, including terrible stomach cramps, severe sickness, and dry dehydration, were almost identical to cholera, a disease that had recently killed thousands in British cities. When rich families became ill, doctors usually told them to go to the seaside or a spa town. The cure worked purely by luck. It simply took the sick person out of their toxic sitting room. Despite more and more medical proof printed in journals like The Lancet, wallpaper makers fought hard against any laws to stop them. The worst example of this cover-up involved William Morris, the famous designer who championed natural art. Whilst telling the public to return to simple, natural things, Morris was also a director of Devon Great Consols, which was then the biggest arsenic mine on Earth. Letters show that Morris laughed off the medical warnings about his wallpapers, calling them nothing but a silly scare, choosing business profits over customer safety until public boycotts finally forced makers to sell papers marked as arsenic-free. To understand how Victorian women were shaped, we must first look at how 19th century society kept control over them. By the 1860s, the female body was forced into a strict shape dictated by the corset. This underwear showed everyone a woman's social standing and goodness. A loose body meant a loose moral character, making the corset essential even in the blistering heat of Britain's overseas territories. The shift from a helpful undergarment to a killer device was sped up by a tiny change in design: the metal eyelet. These metal-ringed holes let women pull their laces incredibly tight without ripping the cloth, putting their bodies under massive physical pressure. The damage this forced shape did to the body was horrific. Medical studies of old bodies show that internal organs were pushed completely out of place. The liver, the biggest organ inside the body, was squeezed up against the ribs so hard and for so long that the bones left deep dents in the flesh. At the same time, the stomach and lower organs were crushed downwards, often causing internal tearing and dropping, even in women who kept wearing corsets whilst pregnant. Modern sports tests show exactly how much these tight garments choked the lungs and heart. Tests prove that a tight corset cuts the amount of air taken in with each breath by 200 to 300 milliliters. To make up for this constant lack of oxygen, the body has to pant, raising the resting breathing rate by a quarter. This constant struggle for air left women wide open to deep chest infections, turning simple colds or pneumonia into a death sentence. As the years went on, the heavy physical toll of this tight clothing collided with changes in society. The start of the Rational Dress Society in 1881, led by women like Constance Wilde, marked an organized fight against clothes that bent the body out of shape or ruined health. This movement joined hands with early Votes for Women campaigns and the new craze for riding bicycles, showing that the corset was not just a health hazard, but a physical barrier keeping women from freedom and equal rights. The Victorian search for a cozy home next turned to the kitchen and the fireplace, swapping smoky, hard-to-clean coal fires for piped gas to heat and light the house. This new technology, however, brought a highly dangerous and hidden threat into the home. Early pipe systems brought unpurified gas straight from coal plants into living rooms, a gas loaded with deadly carbon monoxide. Worse still, this gas had no smell added to it, making leaks completely impossible for a human to sniff out. Families had no way of knowing about a leak that could easily suffocate them in their sleep. The safety of the system was made even worse by greedy gas businesses. Rough competition between local gas firms led to cheap, dangerous shortcuts. Companies regularly lowered the gas pressure across the town at night to save money. This drop in pressure made gas lamps and fires go out. When the pressure was turned back up in the morning, gas would pour silently into the bedrooms. The smallest spark, from a match or later an electric light switch, would blow the house apart. Gas companies hid the truth from the public, with some adverts even lying to say their gas was completely safe. This same gap between grand ideas and poor building work ruined early attempts at central heating. To get rid of cold drafts, inventors made closed systems that used a gas boiler to pump hot water or steam to radiators around the house. The main part, a large iron boiler, was basically a high-pressure bomb. However, the metalworking of the time was poor, often leaving hidden cracks and weak spots in the iron. Without safety valves to let off steam or any real understanding of how metal weakens when heated over and over, these boilers were ticking time bombs. A break would not just cause a leak, it would blow up with enough force to knock down brick walls. The very systems built to keep families warm and cozy brought the risk of a violent explosion right into the middle of the home. The last and perhaps deadliest place in the house was the nursery. The Victorian trend of selling childhood meant that, for the first time, there was a massive market for factory-made toys and baby furniture. These things, however, were covered in paint made with heavy amounts of lead. Lead white made a tough, bright finish, whilst other lead mixes made toys look colourful. This put a powerful brain poison right in front of babies. A child's natural habit of putting things in their mouth and chewing on cot rails or lead soldiers gave them a direct way to swallow the poison. Because lead damages a growing brain, the signs, like slow learning and bad behavior, were often sadly blamed on the child's natural naughty temper rather than a poisoned bedroom. An even more sudden danger came from a well-meaning invention, the baby feeding bottle. Popular designs, like the banjo-shaped bottle, had a long, thin rubber pipe running from the glass to the teat. This complicated shape was impossible to wash inside. The materials, like the spongy rubber pipe and cork stoppers, were perfect places for germs to grow. Leftover milk stayed in the dirty corners and soaked into the rubber, turning the bottle into a germ factory. This design flaw was made worse because people simply did not know any better. Whilst scientists were just starting to understand germs, this news had not reached mothers at home. Parents, unaware of the invisible danger, were feeding their babies deadly doses of bugs like dysentery and typhoid with every single meal. The result was a massive rise in babies dying from stomach bugs, turning a gadget sold as a modern wonder into one of the era's quickest killers. The Victorian home show is a stark lesson in hidden dangers. The deadly results of untested inventions, from green wallpaper to dirty feeding bottles, became the direct reason we have modern health and safety laws today. This history shows us that new technology is not a straight path forward, but a journey of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, with changes usually made only after many people have died. A deep look at their homes leaves us with an uncomfortable question. What untested materials, hidden computer systems, or invisible poisons are we letting into our own houses today without knowing the true cost?